Hello and welcome to the Lutheran Institute of Regenerative Agriculture's webinar series for 2023. We've been having a lot of fun this year interviewing various people and a whole bunch of different areas of expertise. And we got a lot more coming. Every couple of weeks, we should be bringing you another expert guest to have a conversation with me on all sorts of things. In fact, though, I think the next several are going to be regenerative farmers, so get a little bit of the on the ground look. And today we have Del Fike. Del Fike is a farmer near Pleasantdale, Nebraska, and he is the co-founder of Grazemaster Group, and we'll have a link to that group on under the show today. And I did want to mention as well, they do a monthly podcast too, so that's something worth checking out and listening to. And I assume that's archived on their site as well. Grazemaster Group is designed to help provide resources and consulting aid to farmers, ranchers, landowners who want to heal the soil, to use regenerative techniques. And the first half of the webinar, part one, which if you haven't watched it yet, go back after this one and watch it. We talk kind of the overall philosophy of thinking through the health and stewardship of the land, both from a pragmatic and then also from a Christian perspective. And now we're going to get a little bit more into the nuts and bolts. What does this actually look like? What does it actually look like? And I think, Del, to start us out, I would like to hear what your definition is, whether it's very short or takes a little more unpacking. What is your definition of quote unquote regenerative agriculture? And I maybe should even add this little bit to it. I mean, is that a term that you're okay with, or is there another one that you might prefer?
Well, we used to throw regenerative ag out a lot, and then there's some people out there that maybe used and abused it a little too much and dropped too many things under the umbrella that more things than I was comfortable with. My definition of regenerative agriculture is very short. It's responsible agriculture. That's as deep as you need to think about it, because at one time we farmed responsibly or we ranched responsibly before a lot of things came into our war chest to use that were sold to us or told to us that you have to use this, you have to be more efficient, you have to be all this stuff, and this magic, maybe chemically induced concoction was going to make your life better. It didn't. It made it harder. It made it most likely shorter, and we lost our soul in the process.
So what does it look like in practice then? So if we have responsible agriculture, what exactly does that look like? Or maybe the best way to get at it would be, what is the first thing that you talk with? Of course, every farm's going to be different, but what is the first thing you're looking for when someone comes to you and asks for help in restoring the soil?
So most farmers and ranchers no longer touch the soil. So when you think about touching the soil and the pure magnificence of what that soil in your hands can start to do for you personally, it quickly is a segue into a really large-esque solution. So there's the most important tool on any farm ranch is a spade. And you need to dig soil. You need to look at it. You need to smell it. You can taste it, whatever you'd like to do. It's all beautiful. But you have to have that basic understanding that your most important piece of machinery may not be the $150,000 um, vertical till machine, or whatever. It's that $30 or $40 spade that that you can actually hands on go and see where your soil's at. And um, soil varies, but every acre or hectare, however you want to measure the soil in the world, is depleted in some way, shape, or form. Even, a couple years ago, I was talking to somebody in Ohio, talking to the grandson, the dad, and the grandfather were there. And this grandson was kind of being a snot nosed, smart aleck kid. And he said, "We don't need any soil health. Somebody talking to us about soil health. Our soil is black and it's deep. It's 30-foot deep." And I looked over at the grandfather. He looked up, he was hanging his head, looked up at me, and he said, "Yeah, but when I was a kid, it was 60-foot deep." So every acre or hectare of soil in the world is depleted. And so I'm a firm believer that, yes, it's all depleted, but most of it holds nearly everything we need to raise the crop. We just have to unlock it. So maybe there's a cover crop that can really unlock, a lot of that stuff. Maybe there's, which we know it's not just a maybe. There's all kinds of plants that can do that. There's, get into techniques of animal impact and things like that all benefit the soil. We have to think about God's grazers. When it was perfect in this world, we're bigger than we can even fathom. Were the dinosaurs the original grazers? Probably. Were they big? You bet. They weren't put on this earth as a mistake. They were put on a lot of those things that were so large back in their day, plants, trees, animals. It's because the soil was still perfect, the environment was perfect, and everything was really in balance. And then we started to get away from that. So there's a million different techniques. There's a million different things to do. There's all kinds of practices. It's just starting with one. And after you get one under your belt, it gets kind of, it's pretty contagious, and you want to do more. But it's for like we talked in the first episode, sometimes it's pretty hard to get guys to just change one thing. Mm-hmm. But once they do, and it really needs to be their idea. You can talk about it, but they have to have it. They have to think it's their idea, and I don't care. I just want them to change. But then you can really see how things, improve. Or around here, all my neighbors are doing something regenerative. Do all of them talk about it and say it's regenerative? No, maybe one or two. Everybody else, it's just they're doing this deal. So it doesn't have to be tied to a certain word or to even a certain methods. Each practice is different on each farm or ranch, but you just got to get started.
It's become kind of a watchword in our house. What you said to us, Dell, as you stood at in our pasture, and we were talking about, okay, well, how would we divide this up into paddocks and graze? And you said to me, you said, well, if you just put an electric fence down the middle and you just cut it in half, then you're 50% better than you were the year before. And that's kind of become the philosophy with everything we're doing here, is like, well, you do a little bit and you're a lot better than you were before. And I think that's incredibly important because and I think it was our conversation with Rory Groves last time, is sometimes people view this, and I think especially your really small scale homesteader type folks get into the kind of competition mentality. Well, I got to be doing it just perfectly. You got to, and I got to get my points on a scorecard here. And it's not a competition. You're just trying to improve the land that the Lord has given you just a little bit at a time.
Well, and you got to be careful because that kind of mentality takes you right back to where we're at now on the conventional side of farming. Has to be straight rows, can't be any weeds, has to be this, has to be that. It's that was burned into us by politicians and aristocrats and all these people that were making money off of us, or they wanted it to look a certain way. Nope, it's got to be a feel, not a look. It's got to be natural yet profitable, and that's the Graze Master Group. That's one of our logos, our phrases. Nature and profitability. It can happen. You don't just need to have one or the other.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really important because the idea that I think is holding a lot of people back is, and you said in our first half of this webinar that what makes people nervous is, okay, yeah, this is a big leap of faith to sacrifice, theoretically sacrifice assured things, and especially if you go to this sort of agriculture, often, maybe not every time, but often you're interacting directly with customers, which is really a wonderful thing, but it's also a little scary for someone who's been used to just taking the animals to the sale barn and the grain to the bin, to the elevator.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that the whole shift in mindset, or getting people out of their comfort zone, is the scariest part of this. Direct marketing isn't for everybody, and but someone in the group, back to the Graze Master Group, is really, really heavy or strong into the community working together. And so maybe you guys are really good at the local market stuff, and you've got three or four other families that don't want to do that. Well, you do the marketing, they take more of the actual growing. It's give and take. It's really working the way we used to, the way I got to see it as a kid growing up too. It wasn't all gone by the time I was a child, and I watched neighbors barter milk for eggs, or beef for pork, or and I still would do it that way 100%. I think I'd be better off personally if the monetary system blew up completely so I could barter 100%. Talk about being together and close with your neighbors. When it's down to survival, you're gonna all get along, or you're gonna all go away, one of the two.
Yeah. That's really cool how that echoes very well what we talked about with Rory Groves in our last webinar. He talked about communities are formed by need, and when we quit needing each other, then community just evaporated. So to create a community where we are relying upon each other right close here and supplying each other's needs, there's something that's, I mean, it's beautifully, it's beautiful as far as human flourishing. It's also a very, I think, a very Christian way to think through things too, is that's what the body of Christ is meant to do, where it's meant to supply and what the other lacks.
Yep, I totally agree. And that's where, in the first episode we did, I talked about, when we get the soil right, we change all society. You see how it goes back to that. You see how touching the soil and raising something that way is really the genesis, or the initial starting point of rebuilding that all. But we all have to be in it together, and we all have to really figure out how it works for everyone. You don't want somebody that thinks they're not getting as much as someone else. It's I joke, I think I'm a bit socialistic sometimes, because I want fairness in it, yet I know this socialistic deal never really worked that way. So we have to go back to community, neighbors, and what we feel in our hearts, and guided by faith.
Uh, take going back then to the techniques, to what kinds of things we work on and we do. What how do you Well, I'd like to have you kind of talk a little bit about your breed of cattle that you developed as kind of an example of this. How do we manage animal impact for the greatest soil fertility? And again, I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about the breed that you developed as kind of an example of this.
So, I've always had a passion since I was a little kid to try to build the perfect beast. Um, and you can't do that with a straight bred animal. You have to do it with a combination of breeds that all complement each other, that do exactly what you want individually. That's i.e. the base of the graze master. We build it for our place. It's suited to our forages, to our environment, to our end use, our market, and you can do that any place in the world just by tweaking. Maybe starting on the cow side, you start with what they call the old village cow, that cow that's acclimated, and then bring some fresh genetics in. So all that's important as far as that product we want to raise, but that's really secondary to what the animal contributes to the soil. So I used to dream about, I want all these beautiful animals and blah blah blah, and that's, I was fixated on all that. Now I'm just kind of happy with a healthy animal, and one that has manure and urine, which they all do. God created the most perfect fertilizing machine that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The hooves, although maybe not as good as the buffalo, that cattle hoof, disturbs the soil on the top just enough to bring seeds that have laid dormant for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. I'm a firm believer that nothing in the seed bank is obsolete or gone forever. I think we just need to gently massage it and get it closer to the top, which we've done here at our place. We know it works. And then that manure and urine, that's recycled available nutrients right away. So, the tighter you graze them, just like the buffalo, they grazed in large groups in a small area for a short amount of time, and then the predators pushed them off. Well, now we do that. We're the predator we move them to a different paddock and things like that. But just like, now it's cold, and I've been unrolling some bales for the cows. We usually graze year round, but they get some hay on occasion. That hay is 60% for the soil and 40% for the cow. And they call it biocarpeting. We didn't know there was a fancy word. We've done it for 25 years or longer. But you unroll that, you let the cows eat what they want. We translocate seed with those bales. They tromp the rest in, manure, urine. You can go back the next summer and see every place that you biocarpeted, that you unrolled a bale. The grass will be 3 times as tall. It will be darker. There will be new seeds coming, new plants that aren't new to this world, but maybe new to the monoculture pasture that you're enrolling them in. So as human beings, we've really overcomplicated it for the detriment of the environment, or to the detriment of the environment. It really was balanced. It really was. I just think of the way my grandfather did stuff when I was a kid. If we would have never got away from that, how many millions of dollars we'd have saved on inputs and machinery and time and health because of the bad things we were doing. It just crushes me to think how we could have changed or could have stayed the same. So we talk about regenerative agriculture, nothing we're doing except for maybe some technology, maybe some better electric fencers, maybe, better equipment that we seed cover crops with. All of regenerative agriculture, what we're doing now, has been done before. Cover crops are hundreds of years old, thousands of years old in other countries. You know, grazing in those tight groups, the way the buffalo used to hundreds of years ago or thousands of years, it's all been done. Now we can tweak it. Now we can watch it. You can get as fancy as you want or as laid back and economical as you want. Regenerative agriculture, responsible agriculture, like we call it, should not be a system. When it becomes a system, you're 100% back to the conventional ways that really have tanked agriculture.
So we've talked about animal impact. We've talked about cover crops. I'm really that rolling out the bale. What did you call that? What was the term for that?
Biocarpeting.
Biocarpeting. Yeah, that's really incredibly fascinating. Here in the last few minutes that we have, what else is there? Anything else that you help farmers kind of look for and think about when they look at their land? Water, trees, those sorts of things. Anything else that you want to throw out there?
All those really are part of the package when we get onto the place and start looking at what they have. They're too close to seeing what they have. What we really look for is the remnants or the result of that industrialized conventional system and what we can get rid of immediately. What can we sell? Because regenerative agriculture is a lot more about saving money than it is making money. So, and the great thing about saving money is you don't pay income tax on it. Making money, you got to pay income tax. So, it's good to save that money, but it's always seeing what they have, but they don't think it's worth anything. And that's the part that we like to point out to them. If there's excess, anything to sell, or if there's new enterprises that they could start. But really, one of the biggest things is a lot of people don't know what they have in each enterprise for costs. So we always sit down and do an enterprise analysis on each one. And a lot of times that weeds it out on paper before we even get started. And then they can see it and say, gosh, let's do it this other way. And I'd be in trouble with the Graze Master group if I didn't plug. You'll be at our event in Seward, Nebraska, yes, June 28th and 29th. We have a group of people slated to speak and farm tours and all that kind of cool stuff, like no other group in the country's putting together. And I would invite everyone to come, because you will learn more in 2 days than a lot of people have learned in 20 years.
Yeah, I'm real pumped to be out there with you guys. I'll hopefully I haven't 100% decided what I'm going to speak on, but probably something along the lines of rural community, the decline, and then perhaps the the resurgence of rural community, rebuilding rural community, something along those lines. I really
don't
appreciate.
Don't think too deep into it.
Yeah. As we close, Del, and I was going to mention the conference, so I'm glad you did. Why did you think it was important to have our voice, Lutheran Institute of Regenerative Agriculture? Why is it important for you to be connected with us? Let the folks know what you see significant about what we're trying to do out here.
You are truthful, you're honest, you have the right passion, you have the right ideas. it makes me no difference if it's the Lutherans or whatever. We're all people, but you guys have a chance. And I've said this for a long time. Carrie said this probably longer than I have. People standing in front of congregations have more power to change this than anyone else, even far greater than the academics and all those, because you can tie it to God, you can tie it to the faith, you can tie it to the where we started at. Who would want to get back to when everything was beautiful? Like, no one ever says I don't want that, you know. So you guys do what you're doing is a natural fit for the faith that we have. And of course, then the whole history of not only my family but Carrie's and a lot of these people involved with our group of the small town congregations made the biggest difference. But it's got to be in our hearts, and that's like I was saying, don't think too much into what you're going to say at our conference. Just speak from the heart, and don't overthink it, because it will come out the way God wants you to, to get it out. So we have faith in you guys, else we would not be, involved in trying to make it better. And I know we're not doing a ton, but we're certainly trying to promote your cause and will help in any way.
Well, and it has been a tremendous help to have you on our webinar today, Del. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been an honor to have you. This has been the second half of our webinar with Del Ficke, co-founder of the Graze Master Group. Please, if you're just watching this one, go back and watch part one, and definitely share with your friends and pass this along. We want these webinars to be informative for a wide variety of folks. So many people can glean the insights that we're turning up in these conversations. Del, thank you very much for being with us today.
I am grateful that you guys wanted to have me, and keep up the good work.
All right, friends, have a wonderful rest of the day. The Lord be with you.